Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to Kottabos Space Program, where today we are having a look at the Propulsion Sci-Fi Engines pack, which is being made by user Kerbonauts. And what this glorious little piece of work looks to add into the game is a lovely little collection of super powerful futuristic sci-fi engines, as well as a new fuel type to go with them. So let's jump into the vehicle assembly building and have a look at what all we do get here. And let's grab a Mark 1 command pod for size comparison's sake, and then head to our janitor's closet mod filter, just leaving on Kerbonauts Laboratories. And the first parts we'll find are under the fuel tanks category, and the first is the HPJT-01 Hyperplutonium tank. That's right, the fuel for the engines in this mod pack is hyperplutonium. It is a sci-fi engine pack after all, so gotta go big or go home, I guess. Now, as for the fuel tank here, I really love the design of this tank. It is very cool looking. The texturing is a little bit to be desired, just sort of being a matte black, and that seems to be the case for most of the parts around here. Hopefully that does improve over time, but overall, still a really good looking tank. And of course, who doesn't want to hold 1,200 units of hyperplutonium? It'd just be crazy not to. Now, as for the remaining three fuel tanks that are in here, they are all adapter fuel tanks. This one adapting from the 3.75 meter engine size to one of the particular rectangular engines in the next category. The next goes from the Mark II fuselage design to that sort of shape of an engine in the next category. And then the final one goes from the 1.25 meter / Mark I size of parts to a square-looking engine in the next category. Now, as for the fuel held within them, the 3.75 holds 720 hyperplutonium, the Mark II holds 250 plutonium, or hyperplutonium, sorry, and the final 1.25 adapter has 100 units. Now, next, when we go into the engines category, let's just pop these off. We have 4 glorious new engines to use. The first is, oh boy, the Hyperprop thermonuclear engine, and it's gigantic, and of course fits with the 3.75 fuselage design, and yeah, pretty big. Again, like with this fuel tank up here, I love the modeling. There's a lot of great detailing in the modeling, and the texturing is a lot better on this one, having like the Canai Industries, the radiation symbol, etc. Very good looking, and all in all, just a cool engine. And it's super powerful, producing, oh boy, 19,000 kilonewtons of max thrust in vacuum, with a ISP of 98,000 in a vacuum, using that hyperplutonium and a whole lot of electric charge. And that's sort of the balance for this mod, is this stuff uses a ton of electricity, and if you don't plan correctly, you'll run out real quick. Though, you don't always need a lot of electricity to get into space, I found with these. I was playing around with this engine in particular, had enough for basically just like a couple second burst. I got into space. It was impressive. But yes, a super powerful engine. There you go. Now the next one is another, I actually called this one the Hyperprop. They are all Hyperprop thermonuclear engines. That's the Mark I version, Mark II, Mark III. So the Mark II version here, not quite as powerful at only 9,799 kilonewtons of thrust rather than 19,000. And it, of course, fits with that other adapter. I don't quite know the shape to call this, but yes, another cool-looking engine. Nice on the modeling and detailing on this. I very much do like it. Not quite as powerful, but still pretty darn powerful. Now, the next engine is the Mark III version, producing only a mere 5,200 kilonewtons of thrust. Oh, there we go, and it's square shape, and again, super powerful. And the final engine, and my personal favorite of them all, the VRTX-1, and it's actually upside down, we gotta rotate it, but look at how beautiful this thing is. Oh, and combined with that tank, Oh, it's gorgeous. I really, really do love this thing. It's quite cool. Now, this one actually has two different engine modes. You can just go hyperplutonium and electric charge for a maximum of 1,100 kilonewtons, or you can go neptunium gas and liquid fuel, and then it'll only do 300 kilonewtons of thrust. So I don't know why you'd ever go with that one, but hey, you can. You can. Now, you may be wondering, how do you get that neptunium gas? We didn't have it in the fuel tanks. Well, that's why we need to go down to aerodynamics, where we have the hyperprop neptunium gas ram intake, which basically is an air intake, and functions, in fact, as an air intake, as you can see here, but it also collects neptunium gas. So you can just pop this onto the side of anything. It's just a pretty generic looking air intake there, but of course it does get you that glorious, glorious neptunium, which is always handy. And that is it for all the parts in this pack as it stands at the time being. And yeah, these things are really powerful engines. So let's go take a look at a little rocket I threw together with just 2 of the engines. Granted, I have 4 of them total on it, and boy, does this thing get into space real quick. And also, boy, does it explode real easy with how fast it goes. Now, on here, we have 3 of the sort of Mark III hyperprop engines here, and then we have the beautiful VRTX-1 down there, because it's just so gorgeous. And I have, oh boy, a whole lot of the radioisotope generators to provide power for this thing, as well as a number of batteries around the place. And, yeah, holds pretty stable with the electric charge, but I am going to bring up this just in case. But first, I guess we probably should get a nice view of the thing in general, as despite the matte textures being a little bit bland, they still look darn good, especially with the engines and that one in particular. And all in all, it just makes for some very interesting, heavily sci-fi inspired rockets, which is always fun to have. But let's turn back on the UI and bring back up that just in case I run out of power. There we go. And let's turn on SAS, and I'm actually going to throttle it down and then bring it up to just there. Just a tiny little mark on the throttle, and fire, and look at us go. We're easily taking off, and we have some pretty nice little particle effects there. The center engine having a more typical one, and then the 3 side engines with the very beautiful blue. And we could quite easily get into space, just very slowly, with that tiny little bit of throttling. Let's just bring it up to here. Just right there, not even very far. And look at how fast we're already going. And we're already getting the wind effects, and things are gonna get real bad for us in the upper atmosphere with heat. We could always make it go a little more quickly though and go to 100. Ah, look at the fire. We are about to burn up into oblivion. And there we go. There, oh no, we're actually still alive. Wow, we actually survived. I'm glad I put that tiny little heat shield on the top. Beautiful, beautiful. But yeah, that's how powerful these engines are. At on 100%, oh boy, you will just rip yourself apart in atmosphere. Now, when you're in space, wow, dude, does that speed just mean wonderful, wonderful things for you getting anywhere very quickly. Earlier, I was in orbit, just sitting at about 250 kilometers up, and I throttled up to 100% just for a couple of seconds. I was already more or less on a trajectory for Duna. They're that powerful of engines. It is quite impressive. Perhaps a little bit cheaty, and they currently are not integrated properly in career mode because they aren't quite yet integrated into the tech tree system. But here in the sandbox, what the heck, have a little fun, enjoy some super powerful engines that, oh god, are already burning us up again. I never even went to 1/3 throttle. Let's start aiming ourselves down, and once we get out of the atmosphere here, we can really throttle it up, and that'll be even better. And yeah, it's just a fun, super powerful, kinda cheaty, but gloriously sci-fi looking set of engines. And now that we're clear, throttle up! There we go. And let's look at that. Look at it go. Look at it go. And it's gone. Oh, it's great. I love it. But yes, that is the Hyper Propulsion Sci-Fi Engines pack. Just a really cool little set of engines and fuel tanks, and of course, Hyper Plutonium. How can you say no to Hyper Plutonium? So if you'd like to check this out for yourself, which I would certainly recommend you go and do, you can have a look at the link in the description, as per usual. But that is going to be it for today. I hope you all have enjoyed and that you do come back for the next episode, when hopefully we'll be looking at yet another wonderful mod. But until that time, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good one!